Today we're going to talk about section 35.1. We're going to be following digestion of a meal. And we're going to follow the meal all the way through. You just come to the cafeteria and you had some excellent food. Let's say you had some breaded ravioli. How many of you guys like that? Oh, I love that stuff in the caf. Okay, so we're going to act as if you just had some breaded ravioli and you are eating it, and we're going to see where it goes, what happens to it, and all that good stuff. I love talking about food. I love talking about food and all that good stuff. I love food. My favorite restaurant is Olive Garden. My favorite meal at garlic herb chicken con broccoli. I like to say it. So in this section, first we're going to talk about the functions of the digestive system, and then we are actually going to take a journey through the digestive tract. Are we ready for the journey? Yes. All right, let us go. The functions of the digestive system. Why do we want to have a digestive system? Break down food, right? We have food, we want to eat it, break it down. Why? Energy. We want energy. Okay, so the functions of the digestive system would be to break down or disassemble food into small molecules to use as energy. Okay, so we're taking the food in, whether it's breaded ravioli or whatever the case might be, garlic herb chicken con broccoli from Olive Garden or whatever the case. You want to break it down into small molecules so that you can use it as energy. There are 4 steps in digestion. Step number 1, you want to take it in, ingestion. So you're taking in the food. Step number 2, digestion. You want to break it down. You're mechanically and chemically breaking down the food. After that happens, we have step number 3, which would be absorption. And absorption is when you're taking these nutrients and all that good stuff into your body cells. And lastly, the last step would be elimination. You want to get rid of the waste. So ingestion, digestion, absorption, and elimination. What are the phases? Number 1, ingestion. 2, 3, and okay, let's do that one more time, and it's going to be in our brains. Number 1, 2, 3, and elimination. Here we are looking at the digestive system. We're going through the digestive tract. You can see here it starts in your mouth, and then we go down into the esophagus. From the esophagus, where do we go? Stomach. From the stomach, we're going to go into the small intestines, and then from the small intestines, we go into the large intestines, and then we go out the anus. The food gets eliminated that way. So starting in the mouth, and we're going to follow the food all the way through the digestive tract. So let's go. Okay, what happens in your mouth? First thing, you have your tongue in your mouth, right? I hope everyone has tongues in their mouths. Okay, good. You have your tongue in the mouth, and that moves the food around. You get the food in, you can move the food around, and then you do what? What do you want to do with your food before you swallow it? You want to chew your food. Okay, so you have the process of chewing, which starts to mechanically break down the food. Okay? So we're physically breaking down the food. So this is the first place we have mechanical breakdown, and we also have chemical digestion. And the reason we have that is what do you have? What else do you have in your mouth? What liquid? Saliva. Okay, so we have saliva. The salivary glands secrete saliva, and you're going to actually see this when you watch the movie at the end of class. But the salivary glands secrete saliva, and the saliva contains an enzyme. The name of that enzyme is amylase. Anytime you hear a chemical name or anything of that sort, and it has the 3 letters ASE at the end, usually that refers to an enzyme. So the enzyme in the saliva is what? What is it? Amylase. And the function of the amylase is to start chemically breaking down starch. Okay, that's a carbohydrate. We want to start breaking that down, and amylase is the enzyme that does that. Then the tongue shapes the food into a ball and moves it to the back of the mouth. And then what do you do with that food? You swallow that food, and that forces it down into the esophagus. Here in the front of class, we've looked at Sherlock Bones. Now we have Watson, and I'm going to disassemble him a little bit. I took off part of his head. Let me take off his chest. Okay, what are these that I'm taking out here? Okay, those are his lungs. He has no more lungs. Okay, what is this guy here that's wiggling? That's his heart? Okay, let's get rid of his heart. He's a heartless guy. What is this? Oh, you guys are on point. I like it. Okay, so I just got rid of his liver. And now we can look at it. Let me turn on the light. We're going to turn on the light. Let me clear some space here and put him up here so that you guys can see clearly. Okay, his arm is getting in the way. Let me get rid of that. All right, sweet. So we have the mouth here. We take the food in, and then it goes to the back of the mouth. Let me turn him to the side. And you can see here we have the esophagus. Some of you can see it. Some of you might not be able to see it. But then that goes down through the esophagus. That's the yellow tube that you see here. And then it goes into this. What is this? Stomach. That is the stomach. All right, so we're going to follow it through to the stomach. And then we're going to see what happens all along that process and all of those details. So this is what we're looking at. And we are now in the esophagus, and we're going to see what happens there. So the esophagus is a muscular tube. I said muscular tube. What type of muscle do we have here?
Oh, not cardiac.
Smooth muscle. All right, sweet. What are the three types of muscle? Number one, two, and skeletal muscles. Smooth, cardiac, and skeletal. Here we have smooth muscle that connects your mouth to your stomach. It's a muscular tube that connects your mouth to your stomach. Hey, this is Leslie Samuel from leslie-samuel.com. And while I was recording this lecture in class, I had some technical difficulties. In other words, the batteries in my lapel microphone basically died, and the rest of the lecture from here to the end didn't have any sound in it. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this into my studio, and I'm going to record it for you. It's still going to have the same content. It's not going to have the interactivity with the students, but you can still learn the content, and I hope you still enjoy it. So we were talking about the esophagus, and it connects your mouth to your stomach, and what it does is it moves this food by the process of peristalsis. The process is called peristalsis, and this is a series of smooth muscle contractions. Now, these contractions basically happen in waves. They occur in waves, and it's a mix of circular and longitudinal muscles that are contracting and relaxing. So we have muscles that are going around the esophagus, and then we have muscles that are extending along the esophagus from the mouth down to the stomach. Now I want you to imagine you have a tube, and you want to get something from the top of that tube to the bottom of that tube. And the tube is a flexible tube. So let's imagine you put whatever the particle is in at the top, and then you start to squeeze at the top. What that's going to do is it's going to move it down, and as it moves down, you can take your other hand and squeeze that section, and then you can move your next hand down and squeeze that section, and you can continue alternating these contractions until you've moved that particle, whatever it is, from the top of that tube to the bottom of the tube. And this is somewhat similar to how peristalsis works in the esophagus. Now, there's also another structure that we need to talk about because it's very important, and it's called the epiglottis. And the epiglottis, what it does is it closes the opening to the respiratory tract. Now, if your mother's anything like mine or anything like many of the other mothers in the world, something that my mother always told me is that I shouldn't talk and I shouldn't laugh while I'm eating. Because what happens when you do that is sometimes you choke. And we don't like choking because that's uncomfortable, and then you cough and all that, and we try to avoid that. Now, the reason for this is when you're swallowing, what normally happens is this little flap called the epiglottis, it closes down and covers the respiratory tract so that the food goes down the esophagus and not into the respiratory tract. I'm gonna show a picture of this on the next slide, but basically keep in mind that what we're trying to do is steer the food in the right place so that it goes down the esophagus and not down the respiratory tract so that you don't choke, you don't cough. Now, when you're talking or laughing while you're eating, this can cause the epiglottis to remain open, and then food can start going down the respiratory tract, and then you cough because you're choking and you're coughing to try to get that food out. So let's look in this picture. You can see here we have the epiglottis, and when you swallow, what happens is that little flap closes down and it covers the opening to the larynx opening into the pharynx, and that's basically going down the respiratory tract, which goes to your lungs. And you want the food to go to the esophagus, so we close the epiglottis so that the food can go down the esophagus and then into the stomach. So let's talk about the stomach. The stomach is a muscular pouch-like enlargement of the digestive tract. And you've seen pictures of it in the previous slides, and I'm going to show another picture of it in the next slide. But this is where we have both physical and chemical digestion. Just like in the mouth, we had physical digestion with the teeth and chemical digestion with the salivary amylase. We also have physical and chemical digestion happening in the stomach. Now, there are 3 layers of involuntary muscles, and by now you should know that this muscle is smooth muscle, and that basically contracts to physically break down the food. And in the stomach, we also have digestive juice that is produced that contains digestive enzymes, and those enzymes can chemically break down the food that gets into your stomach. Now, the food remains in your stomach for approximately 2 to 4 hours. And as we take this journey through the digestive tract, we're going to look at how long the food spends in the different parts of the digestive tract. Obviously, in your mouth, it stays there for as long as you're chewing, which is usually a few seconds. Then it goes down your esophagus, and that takes a few seconds. But once the food gets into your stomach, it remains there for approximately 2 to 4 hours. So here we have a little picture of the stomach, and you can see here we've looked at a little section here that shows the mucosa, the submucosa, the muscle layers, and the serosa. Now, the ones that I want you to pay attention to are the muscle layers, because this is where we have those 3 layers of involuntary muscles that we spoke about earlier. And this mucosa layer, we're also going to talk a little bit about that in the next slide, because that's very important. And without that layer, we would have some significant problems. Now, we said that there's physical breakdown that happens because the muscles are contracting, and that there's also chemical digestion because there are some enzymes in the stomach that does that. Now, the inner lining of the stomach contains millions of glands. And these glands secrete what we call gastric juice, which is a mixture of a number of different chemicals. 2 of the things that are produced by these gastric glands are pepsin and hydrochloric acid. Now, pepsin is very important because what it does is it breaks down proteins. So chemical digestion of proteins happens with the help of the enzyme pepsin. Now, in order for pepsin to do what it needs to do, it needs to have an acidic environment. And of course, that's provided by the hydrochloric acid, because hydrochloric acid has a pH of 2, which is a very strong acid. It's so strong that the stomach would be digested by this hydrochloric acid if there wasn't something to protect it. Where I'm from in St. Martin, in my house, outside of my house, we have a yard, and the yard has white tiles. Now, those white tiles, because they're outside and because you're on an island and there's a lot of dirt around in different places, they tend to get dirty really easily. And when they get dirty, they're no longer white, they turn brown. And no matter how much you scrub them, you won't be able to get that out if you're just using water or soap, because it gets so ingrained into the tiles that it becomes really hard to get it out. And the only way we can get it out is by going to the hardware store and picking up some acid, a very strong acid that we can actually just pour on the tiles, and once we leave it there for a little while and we rinse it off, they'll be white as snow. Now, because it's such a strong acid, it can do some serious damage, and the same thing would happen in the stomach if it were not protected. Fortunately, the stomach lining is protected by mucus, and that mucus protects it from that breakdown from the hydrochloric acid. When food leaves the stomach, it has the consistency of tomato soup, and then it enters the small intestine, which is the next section of the digestive system, which is where we're going to next. Before we move on to that, here we're looking at an enlargement of a small section of the stomach, and you can see we have a number of folds, which is a good thing because that increases surface area, and here we have a number of cells that are responsible for producing the pepsin and the hydrochloric acid that we've spoken about. So let's go into the small intestine. The small intestine is approximately 6 meters long and 2.5 centimeters in diameter. There's muscle contraction that happens here, once again smooth muscle, and because there's contraction happening, there's going to be mechanical breakdown. And there are also enzymes in the small intestines that break down carbohydrates and proteins. Now, the first 25 centimeters of the small intestine we call the duodenum. It's a strange name, I know, but it's the name that we call the first 25 centimeters, and it has a particular function. So the first centimeters is the duodenum, and this is where the small intestine receives enzymes from the pancreas and the liver via ducts. Okay, so we have the pancreas and the liver that makes their own enzymes, and it sends it to the small intestines via ducts to the duodenum. Okay, so we have the food that's broken down in the stomach, and from the stomach it goes into the duodenum, which is the first 25 centimeters of the small intestine. And we have the liver over here, the pancreas over here, and also the gallbladder. We're going to talk about the functions of these three when it comes to digesting food. First, let's talk about the pancreas. The pancreas secretes the digestive enzymes and hormones. And these digestive enzymes break down carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Now, one good thing about this is that the pancreatic juices are basic, they're alkaline, and this helps to neutralize the activity of the food and stops the action of pepsin. Now, the pancreatic juices are basic, they're alkaline, which neutralizes the acidity of the food and stops the action of pepsin. Okay, as the food travels from the stomach, it's very acidic, and you want to neutralize that acidity. And because we have this basic juices, the basic juices from the pancreas, that can help to neutralize that acidity and stop pepsin from doing what it's doing. So once again, we're looking here at the pancreas, and we have the pancreatic juices that are produced and sent via ducts to the duodenum. The liver is also important because it secretes bile, and bile is important because it helps to break down fats. When the bile is produced, it's stored in a small organ called the gallbladder. If you have high levels of cholesterol in your diet, this can cause the gallbladder to become inflamed and gallstones to form, and that can be very painful. All right, so the liver is secreting bile. The bile is stored in the gallbladder, and then that can be released into the small intestines, into the duodenum, when food is there, so that it can help to break down fats. All right, so here we have our liver, and you can see it's producing bile, and that can go to the gallbladder and be stored there, and that can also go via the ducts to the duodenum of the small intestines. Now, food remains in the small intestines for 3 to 5 hours. Okay, so if you remember, in the stomach it stays there for 2 to 4 hours, and then it goes into the small intestine and stays there for 3 to 5 hours. And it's also moved by the process of peristalsis, like what we looked at in the esophagus. It also contains thousands of finger-like structures that we call villi, and these finger-like structures, like we mentioned from the stomach, increases the surface area, and this is where absorption happens. So by increasing the surface area, you can increase absorption. Food molecules enter the villi, they diffuse into blood vessels, and then enter the bloodstream. So we're talking about the process of absorption. We've broken down the food, we've digested it, and now we're taking it into the blood cells, into the body cells via the bloodstream. So here we can see, so far we've gone from the mouth down the esophagus into the stomach, and now we're into the small intestine, and then the next section would be going through the large intestine. The large intestine is also called the colon, and it's approximately 1.5 meters long and 6.5 centimeters in diameter. All of the indigestible material, the stuff that's not absorbed into the bloodstream and into the body cells, enters the large intestines. One of the major processes that happen in the large intestines is that water is being absorbed, and as water is absorbed, this is leaving behind more solid material. Also, there are some anaerobic bacteria in the large intestine that synthesizes vitamins B and K, and those are absorbed into the body as needed. The remaining indigestible material, we call it feces, and that reaches the rectum after approximately 18 to 24 hours in the large intestine. And then it's eliminated through the anus when you use the restroom. Your meal's entire journey takes 24 to 33 hours. It takes 2 to 4 hours in the stomach, 3 to 5 hours in the small intestines, and then 18 to 24 hours in the large intestine. So in review, we've looked at the functions of the digestive system, and then we took a journey through the digestive tract, following the food from the mouth to the esophagus to the stomach to the small intestine to the large intestine and out the anus. We've looked at the processes of ingestion, digestion, absorption, and elimination. And that is the end of section 35.1.